And so now it is time, with all of that information, time for power rankings. We didn't change things last week because nothing really happened. We had 2 games, didn't really matter. But this week...
The games mattered. It just didn't matter in our power rankings.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Sorry. This week, lots of games that really mattered for our power rankings.
Yeah, so the same bottom 4 as they have been for the first few weeks, I guess, for the most part. I don't think they've changed at all for the most part, right? So let's start here 7, 8, 9, I guess. We're a little bit of a discrepancy for a few of these tonight, so bear with us.
I want to start with Georgia because we talked about Georgia. They did not look good at home. You lose by 6 to Buffalo, and I know Buffalo's a good team, but at times they didn't look good against Halifax the last time they played. So for Georgia, I dropped them from 5 down to 7. Where do you like to swarm?
Ooh, I put them all the way to 9, Travis.
So you have them plummeting.
I haven't been convinced by them all, at least in the last few weeks here. They did not look impressive at all this weekend. And I guess my expectations for them are a little bit higher. So when I'm disappointed by them, it's a little bit different. But their offense this year, 5th in the league, which is not like them. And I think a big reason for that is Holden Katoni getting picked up in the expansion draft by Rochester. I think that's made an impact on that right side of the floor for them. So Georgia, just how they've looked the last couple of weeks, I don't feel great about them. And I don't think another team has made me feel as badly as they do. So that's why I brought them to 9.
One thing I will say is they've got a win over Philadelphia, who I have assumed that you have kind of inching up a little bit.
Yeah,
that's the one spot that Georgia has impressed me because they looked good in that win over Philadelphia. That was one of the reasons I had them not falling as far as you did.
That was a while ago.
A couple weeks ago.
That was
Things
Philly's
have changed.
First game of the
year.
year.
But it still was a dominating win.
Okay, so want to put them at 8?
Yeah, let's put them at 8. Honestly,
you had 7, I had 9.
I
right?
would I'd like to keep Calgary where they're at because they haven't played here in the last couple of weeks, and honestly, just not much has changed. Dane Doby is still suspended. I think until they figure some stuff out, they're just kind of sitting there.
I did have them moving up. Why these 2 flipped?
Okay,
I guess
that's
that
fair.
makes sense. Something to keep an eye on for Calgary. I saw an interesting stat. 2nd most shots allowed this year, but also the 2nd best defense, so goals against average. Christian Del Bianco, a huge reason for that. I want to see if that keeps up for Calgary. So I'm worried if those stats sort of start evening out, they stay there. So something to keep an eye on for Calgary, too.
Where do you have the Rock?
Toronto Rock. Let's see where I have the Toronto Rock. I got to scan my thing. I have them at 6.
Okay.
What do you think about them at 6?
I had them down at 8, but...
For this week?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I just not feeling
Toronto
good.
Rock at 3-1, a couple of close wins over Rochester.
See, that's
so that
the
hasn't
killer.
been overly impressive. But they're wins. They are wins.
This Rochester team is winless. They have not. Now they've looked better than New York, but in some games not by much. And you only beat them by 1 at home? That's worrisome to me. And I know you played them in back-to-back weeks, so you have the familiarity factor that certainly plays into it. It just doesn't make me feel real good about Toronto.
I just don't feel like they've done enough to move up or enough to move down. I mean, a win's a win in my eyes.
Then what do you have, 6?
Yeah.
I can settle with 6.
Okay, all right.
Put Toronto
that's
there
fine.
at number 6.
Well, who do you have at 7 then? Philly?
I had Philly in there at number 6. They really impressed me this weekend. And they've impressed me a couple of weeks. And I know they're, at this point, taking care of the bottom part, and these bottom 4 teams have kind of put themselves in their own little category here, and they took care of them. But I love that win over Vancouver. It took care of business. But what do you like them at 7?
You know what? I will put Toronto. You're right. You've convinced me.
Okay.
I guess. You had what? Philly at 6?
Yeah. So flip-flop the 2 of them.
Okay, I'll flip-flop the 2 of them. Actually, I don't know how I feel about this.
Philly wings at number 6.
Because
let's go. Philadelphia.
They've got 3 straight wins. They've got a huge matchup this weekend with New England. So I think that's really where we're going to see where they fit. But top half for Philly now, pretty impressive.
Now the question is, have they improved since that Georgia game? Because they're now stepping up the level of competition against a team that is going to be toward the top of our power rankings once again. Now, this is going to be a good barometer to see, all right, are they just feasting off teams that are still trying to figure it out, or can they play with the best?
Yeah, Kyle Matisse playing really well in transition for them once
Crowley,
again this year.
Big landmark goal this weekend as well.
Yeah, 300 club, right? Okay, top 5. Here we go. Who you got at 5?
I've got Buffalo making their way back up to number 5. I think that was a nice bounce-back win for them, and after a game at home against Halifax that surprised me, where they weren't in it quite as much as I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, 15-10 that game.
Nice way to bounce back, going down to Georgia and taking care of this one.
Yeah, that might have been more of a product of Halifax in that game, I think, just being really, really hot at this point in the year. That really it was interesting to see Matt Vince's stats. I was looking them up, and his goals against average is his worst since 2012 right now. That 15 goal, I mean, he's allowed 10 goals in the other 2 games. They're allowing 15 goals in one game.
Right.
It's a little inflated,
It's
but
early.
still, it's early, but still something to keep an eye on. He doesn't have those blow-up games that often. Hopefully they sort of keep that where it is and can go to regression to the mean, if you will, and maybe start creeping up and doing a little bit more what they did last year in Buffalo. Chris Kluche has stepped up for them big time, losing Sean Evans to Rochester in the draft.
So what we have is 2 pairs of teams here. You got Colorado and Saskatchewan in that competition for 3 and 4, and Halifax and New England in competition for the top 2. In 3 and 4, I flip-flop these 2 because of Saskatchewan just feels better to me right now. And the big one is the head-to-head win that Saskatchewan has over Colorado. And I know recency bias was the Colorado above, but now that Colorado's back at 3 and 2 after this loss this weekend, Saskatchewan's at 3 and 1, and they've got the head-to-head. That was what gave me the edge to Saskatchewan.
I liked how Colorado did. I liked how they started against Halifax last weekend in that huge game.
Like, it's not a bad loss by any stretch of the imagination. In Halifax, you got to go all the way out there to Nova Scotia. Not easy, but the head-to-head and the 3-1 record gives me the rush at the 3 spot.
I can live with Colorado at 4 and Saskatchewan at 3. Evan Kirk for Saskatchewan is playing better than anybody, and I think that's a big part of. I mean, their defense is always good. Saskatchewan every single year they're up there, but this year Kirk is playing really well. He's given up 8.2 goals against average so far this year. They just beat San Diego, 12-9, and I mean, you got to win those games.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
They
took care of business, which to me is enough to put them. I was and sort of splitting hairs between those 2 anyway. Head-to-head, I think it's a good point. Yeah, to make some 3-4 there.
At this point, coin toss between those 2, in my estimation. It was a 1-goal game when they played in Colorado to start the season.
Who's number 1, Travis? Who do you got?
I'm sticking with the Black Wolves. They haven't played in a couple of weeks, and I know this is the power rankings. It's supposed to be week to week. It's supposed to change, but as good as Halifax has been, I have a hard time putting them over New England from what they've done so far. They impressed me so much at the beginning part of the season in those 3 wins that I still give it. The other thing that I say about Halifax is they've only had to go on the road 1 time so far this year. They still got another home game. They start the season 4 out of the first 5 at home. I think that's a really big advantage for them, especially in a new building where nobody else has gone in their entire NLL careers yet. I think that's been a nice little edge for Halifax. I'm going to be really interested to see this second part of the year when they're not at home every week, how that changes things.
Anyway, Halifax, to me, getting that extra win, to me, propels them to the top. I know New England, it's tough to move them down with not playing, but they didn't play. Halifax,
it's not their fault that they haven't played in 2 weeks.
Gave us another reason to put them ahead of New England this week with a very inspired second half effort against Colorado. I think Colorado only scored a couple goals in that second half. I don't know.
You can go. I'll go with you.
Can we ask Dylan, producer Dylan?
Producer Dylan,
who should we go?
Tiebreaker.
Who was more convinced? Producer Dylan, Big Black. I'm sorry I asked. Callum Crawford, the whole gang. 2 weeks. This is going to be a big weekend for them. I think that's really going to make a big difference. That 2 weeks off, we're going to see a lot about who New England is.
They have been practicing in this time off, New England, by the way. They have gotten together a bunch of times. The other thing I'll say about the Black Wolves is eye test-wise. Like, if I'm looking at their pieces, and especially offensively for New England, Callum Crawford, Joe Resiteritz, the rest of that offense, that I'm trusting a little bit more than Cody Jamieson has had a really good start to the year. Stephen Keogh has been good to start the season.
Banesh has been
Ryan
really
Banesh
good
has been good.
Warren Hill's been good in goal for Halifax.
But I want to see that.
And they've been dominant.
I want to see that full on throughout the year because some of those guys are getting up there. Them staying healthy and them continuing to produce at this rate, I'm going to be interested to see if they can keep that up.
Okay.
All right.
We'll get to that
Just
at some point, and we'll look back on this. Let us know what you think.